uh, happy birthday to Renata as well as it seems. So happy birthday, Renata. And oh, Jeff's skipping the Cairn tasting for a Companions of the Quake tasting, which I suppose is fair. I suppose we have to let that happen. But yeah,
Yeah,
you're gonna
I'd be
miss a
mad
good
if
one,
I
Jeff.
wasn't jealous. So.
Well, I'll put my beer down, which is not green, because that's
Mm,
not something I'm into. You don't have green beer, do you, Harmony?
no, I
No.
think it's
Okay.
gone bad if it's green.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Well, we've got 7 Irish whiskeys to sample tonight from Redbreast. Uh, this has got to be one of the biggest ranges of Redbreast whiskey ever done in Canada. I don't know of anyone who's ever cracked the 27 for sure. We've opened the 21 before, the 15. Probably not. We haven't opened we opened the 18 for a festival, but not for an actual tasting. Uh,
Okay.
but Redbreast was a bit of an enigma for a while. I mean, we'd never see more than 3 or 4 bottles. What is like 12 cask strength, 15 and 21 was kind of the core
This,
range. But
yeah,
then
the
other
Stowe
things,
would come in and out, the Listo sherry.
yeah, but like we would never get offered like the 27, things like that. They probably went to Liquor Depot or a handful of other places, but they weren't things that were kind of offered to us until all of a sudden they were. And then we decided we wanted to have a grand Redbreast tasting because I think down at the heart of it, we've always been fans of Redbreast whiskey. Um, know someone mentioned Jameson in there and Jeff calling it fancy Jameson. I think that's doing it a bit of a disservice because Jameson is a blend. Redbreast is a pure single pot still whiskey, and we can talk about that and how that came about through the tasting tonight. But I think it's always had a bit of a I've always had a bit of a soft spot for it. The 12, the 21, the cask strength, the 15. I'll admit, even though it's been around for a while, because we were so limited in what we had for the longest time, and there was that slight issue of how we annoyed the importer for, and by we, I mean I annoyed the importer for Redbreast by crushing small bottles of the Northern Border Collection under a steamroller to Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture on YouTube. You can actually look up the video. It's probably our first video that we ever posted on YouTube. And it was great. I still have no regrets about that. We had some great opportunities that came about as a result of that video. But some folks at Corby's were none too pleased with me. And even though I could never get it in writing, their employees were banned from entering our store by their company. Um, and we were also verboten from getting anything fun. Uh, but
I fe-
I think,
I
I
feel like
think,
that could still be the case.
well, I
There,
think 12 years later, that might have changed. But I mean, Harmony, thinking of their broader portfolio, including their Scotch portfolio, do they even really have anything all that fun or interesting? Like they're all pretty boring. Like when's the
yeah,
last time you got excited about Aberlour?
can't recall
Yeah.
being excited.
Well, anyway, if you're curious, if you can't find it and you want to see the video, um, my first rant in many ways, actually, and not written down in a newsletter, but recorded with the aid of a Mount Royal College, then I think it's a university now, film student. It cost me a bottle of scotch to borrow the steamroller for said video. Um, I encourage you to look it up. Sky's already put it in the chat there. Thank you, Sky. I knew one of you guys was much more capable than I at that, but enjoy is all I'm going to say. Don't expect big production value, but it's kind of fun. All right. All that aside, um, 7 Redbreast whiskeys. I think we should just dive in with the first one, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what Redbreast is, and I think the history of Irish whiskey, because uh, Redbreast, how it comes about historically, is partly due to the history of Ireland and some things that happened that some folks were none too pleased about. So we are starting with the basic Redbreast 12-year-old, 40% in your first glass. Put it up on screen here. Um, there she goes. We don't know exactly what the cask makeup is on this, but I think it's fair to say it's probably a lot of American oak. maybe a kiss of sherry for a bit of color and a little bit of extra depth in it. Uh, but right off the bat, for 40%, the nose is enticing. It's creamy and fruity. There's some nice cereal notes there. That's I think a theme that's going to carry through a lot of these whiskeys. And again, we'll get into the specifics of why that is in a minute, but Redbreast and specifically single pot still is a very specific style of Irish whiskey. It's not single malt, it's not grain whiskey, it's somewhere in the middle, kind of sort of. And we'll get to that in a moment. But Harmony, what do you think? There's some nice citrus tones on there too, like
Yeah,
lemon and lime, like key lime pie.
oh, interesting. There's a nice kind of creamy texture, even just on the nose.
Hmm.
Little spiciness. I'm getting a little bit more of like a really reduced stewed cherry with some cinnamon.
Mm, I'm in the wrong chat. Let's put that, how about into the main chat? There we go. Um, yeah, it is kind of lush for something this low ABV, which is generally not something we get excited about. There's some nice flavors there, some nice aromas. It is a little on the young side, like you can kind of see that it's a younger spirit, but very pleasant. How's the
Yes.
palate?
Palette is really nice, I think. It's got a great spice to it. Lots of fruit. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like it. It's kind of toasty and citrusy, like those kind of nice oils to
Yeah, it
it.
has a nice
Orange.
oiliness to it,
Yeah.
nice viscosity. There's this kind of grassy, and I got this, I did a tasting note for one of the older whiskeys in the lineup earlier today, and it actually also had the same sort of oily, grassy, like lemongrass, wheatgrass sort of vibe to it. Uh, so the grain with pot still whiskey is going to always make itself known and felt because of how that style is made. But there are some nice vanilla tones there. There's some nice citrus fruits in there. It's creamy. And as you said, there's some nice wood spices towards the finish. But despite the color, despite, everything else, like in some ways, this feels kind of naked. Like I'm not getting a lot of
Hmm.
wine cask influence, whether that be sherry or some other sweet wine, or port, which I know they use in a lot of their other whiskeys. This feels
I
fairly
don't
clean.
believe they use port in the 12. I think it's
Not
just
in 12.
in sherry.
I was kind of
Very
expanding to
mostly.
the range.
Yeah, yeah. Because I feel like yes, there's a signature, but also you can tell when they start adding extra wine casks into um
Mhm.
their family, I think.
Yeah. But decent starting dram.
It's great. And it has a really, I think, nice mouthfeel and finish
Mhm.
for a whiskey that's 40%.
Yeah. Interesting question though. Like, and again, this is something we say and bring up to the point of it almost beating a dead horse. How much better would it be at 43 or 46?
50.
50?
I
Harmony wants 50.
want
All right.
everything to be 50.
Harmony wants Bruichladdich strength on everything, it seems.
Yes.
But yeah, I think a nice starting dram, quite pleasant, easy drinking, a good baseline. We're going to dive into the cask strength in a minute. Before we do, a quick rundown of Irish whiskey history, the Coles Notes version of it. So it's believed that the monks brought distillation to Ireland uh, from Europe. Distillation was spreading due to the connection with of Christian monks in the Middle East. In the Middle East, they were using distillation to make perfume. Europeans decided they had a much better use for distillation, which was to create alcohol or the water of life. And in some form or another, it was introduced to Ireland and Scotland. probably Britain at the same time, if we're being honest. Likely, after around the time of the Norman invasion. Uh, who made whiskey first, we'll never know. The Irish seem to have the best claim, if for no other reason than that the first written reference to whiskey in the world comes from Ireland in 1405 from the Annals of Clonmacnoise, where ironically a chief died at Christmas after drinking the water of life, which I'm sure was the opposite of what he thought was going to happen, but as we all know, you can have too much of a good thing. Legal whiskey production began in the 1550s. By the 1600s, it had spread from Ireland and Scotland to the Americas. In 1608, marketing claims that a distillery called Bushmills was founded, but that's not actually true. A distillery license was granted um, in the area that Bushmills Distillery exists today to County Antrim to a gentleman, but that was not the Bushmills Distillery. The Bushmills Distillery was not, in fact, founded until much later, 1780s, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But the key things here that relate to what we're talking about tonight are the laws that were passed around distillation, because throughout Scotland and Ireland, illicit distillation was rife. Um, just in one peninsula alone, Aeneas Coffey, who before he invented the coffee or the column still was actually an exciseman, a tax collector, he found in 1 year in just one peninsula 800 illicit stills. And expand that throughout the whole of Ireland. Like everybody basically had a still at this point in time. You're making your own homemade wine effectively. Um, they were trying to find ways to tax it, to control it, to regulate it. And a lot of them were dreadful ideas. And the last dreadful idea they had, and this is before they finally put in sensible taxation in 1823 in what was called the Small Stills Act or the Excise Act. The last bad tax they put through is called the malt tax. They were already taxing the amount of spirit the distilleries produced, which could be easily faked. Like, oh, we didn't make 100,000 liters, we only made 10,000. You could just claim that, and there was no way of measuring it. So then they went
Mhm.
after the size of the stills, and they calculated how much spirit you could make in a year given the size of your stills. So that was how much you got taxed. And in a lot of ways, it was very unfair because it meant you would have had to been distilling all the time in order to actually use up that production. But the last clever wheeze they came up with, which the British would say, was they would tax the malted barley. So as the barley got malted, which took up space and time, that could be calculated and measured probably in wagons, bushels, whatever it happened to be, and they put in what was called the malt tax. Well, some very entrepreneurial, clever Irishmen discovered that you didn't need to malt 100% of the barley to make whiskey. You only needed about 8 to 10% of it to be malted, and that would give you the enzymes you needed in order to get the rest of it to ferment. So the key thing there, and this is true when you make whiskey today, if you're making it from corn or wheat, you need a bit of malted barley or malted rye to get the fermentation going because wheat and barley, wheat and corn rather lack the enzymes required to start fermentation. Barley and rye can both be malted and have the enzymes required, but you don't need to malt all of it. You can get away with malting a portion of it. So for argument's sake, let's say they realized they only needed to malt 10% of it. They effectively found a way to reduce their tax liability by 90%, and they carried on making whiskey. And that's how what we call single pot still Irish whiskey was born. It was a way of avoiding paying taxes to the English. And I think we can all agree that that's not a bad thing. Even those of us with more of a Scottish ancestry than like Irish adjacent, sort of kissed history. Um, yeah, that's how it came about. That in itself also proved to be a dreadful tax. So they replaced it in 1823, and as I said, with the Excise Act, which simplified things. It reduced and increased the size of stills you could use. Because before this point in time, The smallest still you could use was large enough that you couldn't put it on a horse and run away with it if the exciseman came. But they also capped the size of the largest still at 750 gallons to control how much people were making. But when they passed this simplified tax system to make it easier to get a license, they made the taxes more predictable, and they essentially formalized the industry and made it less home brewer and more commercial. Um, they drastically increased the size of stills. And so the last little fact I'll probably tell you about Irish whiskey history, because we're going to switch to just talking about Jameson after this, is that that same year that Aeneas Coffey invented the column still in 1832. That was the exciseman who'd found all those illicit stills. Um, sorry, 1825. The world's largest ever pot still was built at just under 32,000 gallons. It was 144,000 liters in size. To date, it is the largest still that has ever been built, and it is at what would be considered the old Middleton distillery. And the still was so big, they actually built the distillery around it. And that's too good a fact to not mention, but I've blabbered on a little bit. Harmy has a question, and then I promise we're going to taste another whiskey.
Did they ever use that still?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It looks so unusable. Like it looks so, when you look at the photos of it just sitting on the lawn, in the lawn, essentially, it looks
Well,
like
it's a nice little tourist attraction now.
that's exactly what it looks like. Uh, it seems like it would take a long time to heat up.
It probably would.
Years.
If for those of you who want to see the photo specifically that we're talking about here, I'll put it on screen for a moment. The world's largest pot still. And this is courtesy of the uh, Master of Malt page on Irish whiskey. So there it is. I'm sure the perspective makes it look a little bigger, but yeah,
Yeah, probably.
it's
I
a
love
pretty
it.
big distillery. And that obviously behind it is a traditional maltings. Most distilleries, including the Irish distilleries today, don't use them because they're incredibly inefficient. But we've been going on for a bit here. There's been a lot of stuff in the chat, which hopefully you saw some of it, Harmony.
Um, None of it's really relevant to the
A lot of it's
conversation.
just okay.
It's
Other
the
than
tea
Tom's
boys.
question about what does illicit mean? Illicit just means illegal, not official, not certified. Still. But yeah, let's dive into the cast strength now because I think ultimately that's what people really want is another dram.
Yeah,
So Redbreast cast strength, formerly Redbreast 12-year-old cast strength, but it's now
been
it's just
demoted.
yeah, just cast strength. But I mean, oh no, it's you know what? It actually does still say 12 years on the bottle.
Oh,
It,
excellent.
it just it's it's all in the fine print, I guess. Or maybe they dropped it but then brought it back, but then didn't want to highlight the fact that they dropped it in the first place. So they just put it
Oh,
in
in
fine print at the
yeah,
bottom of the
aged.
bottle.
It's
Aged
like
12
because
years.
those cast strength drinkers don't care how old it is as long as there's more alcohol.
Well, they likely don't, especially if it's good. But cast strength Redbreast 12, again, single pot still Irish whiskey. Presumably is similar, if not the same construction as the regular 12. Don't really have anything telling us that it's not. Um, but
Mm.
Harmony, how does it nose compared to the 12?
Very similar to the 12, I would say. Um, Very nutty. I find this like
Mhm.
creamy and nutty. It feels like more, I don't know, is it more like new oak, American oak? Like it's got
Mhm.
that nose.
So the official website says bourbon seasoned American oak barrels and Oloroso sherry seasoned Spanish oak butts, but they don't specify the ratio. I would say this has got to be mostly bourbon. Like it's
Yeah.
got a trace of sherry in
Mm.
it at best.
Seasoned. Yes, seasoned. I think typically that means like 2 years ish. It held sherry and then moved on.
I did enjoy the thread about beating dead horses, so thank you for all of you contributing to that. And there are at least one or two good t-shirt ideas in there. Um,
That's possibly a bingo square. Depends
that might be. You
what
know,
card you're using.
there are some. Do we still is I don't even look. Is Evan still putting the bingo square in the emails?
Yeah,
He is.
there. I think
Okay.
there's been 4 or 5 renditions of the card, at least 4. Um, but no, I would say this is definitely more bourbon. It tastes like caramel and old fashions a
Hmm.
little bit, like light on the Angostura, very light. Um, the
Oh,
palate for me, that nuttiness comes through. That's probably that Oloroso.
it's much nuttier than the last one. You know, it's interesting, like I mean, and I suppose it makes sense that the finish would be similar in the sense that it's the same distillate, just at a higher proof, presumably unfiltered, but the flavor is just so much more concentrated, so much more creamy, so much
Hmm.
more velvety. And I love I mean, I would love to know what kind of fermentation times they have on Redbreast. And I don't know if that's something that's even, if someone maybe who's like not trying to host a tasting wants to put into some kind of AI web browser to see if they can get an answer. But I mean, it kind of has this nice funkiness to it that I really like, which I mean, could be coming from that raw grain, which I know we haven't fully talked about the pot still method, but I mean, I think we've sort of hinted at it. It's like that, it's mostly unmalted barley with a little bit of malted barley. And I think that that raw grain is just giving us more kind of flavor and texture than the malted variety.
Yeah, I I don't know. I did a quick chat GTP search, but I don't believe them
Why, what did they
because they
say?
just lie about stuff sometimes.
Mm.
It says that the Middleton distillery distills Redbreast spirit, ferments for 48 to 60 hours.
Oh, Blue Urns. Well, I mean, to be honest, that seems believable. So, I
I
mean,
want it to be longer.
I want it to be longer too, but you know,
Mm.
you can't want in this case.
I enjoyed that cast strength though. That's quite good. Yeah.
No. They both have that sort of green, grassy, oily profile. They both have a lot of cereal notes to it, whether it be the raw barley
I think
or,
that spiciness comes from the barley too, the raw
that
barley.
very likely could be. Some of it, though, if they are truly using a decent amount of uh, sherry seasoned European oak casks,
Mm.
then that could definitely be having an impact too. Now, we learned something the other night with our tasting with Joshua from Single Cast Nation that was fascinating, which I kind of want to fact check him on, but like he seems like too good a guy to have made it up. Like the idea that the only European oak trees that you can find are the ones that fall over on their own and then have to
Mhm.
be air dried and coopered into casks. So they're rare as hen's teeth. And the idea that they'd be using a lot of that for Redbreast 12 and 12 cast strength seems fanciful. Like it can't be more than just just a trace.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying. They'd have to have a lot more barrels, so otherwise then the portions of sherry would have to be lower,
But
perhaps older.
but the profile on this is lovely. I don't think there's a lot of sherry. But yeah. I mean, I have to say I love that image Jeff just created, which
It's great.
I'm happy to share on the screen with everyone. This
Please.
would make a great poster, but I'm not sure it would make a great t-shirt. Um, Nevertheless, thanks for that, Jeff. I'm glad that we have our priorities straight here. Um, trying to stay on the straight and narrow
Did
through the
Sammy fall off
brands.
his chair?
Thank God we did not invite someone from Irish Distillers slash Redbreast to co-host this tasting with us because, man, it's gone. It's already gone offside. We're only on the second whiskey.
Oh,
Um,
let's jump
so
into the third then.
exactly, it does seem relevant. It does seem relevant. Should we do another whiskey and then we can talk about the brand origin story, which is kind of dry but kind of interesting. So we'll share it
Yeah,
anyway.
let's wet our palates for this potentially dry story.
Potentially dry story. So we're going to go on to the Tawny Port edition of Redbreast next, which, as you can tell by the name, included a portion of Tawny Port casks. Uh, so 46% for this one, which we like. Ex-bourbon, sherry, and then finished in Tawny Port. I'll put it up. Currently out of stock. I have a feeling, Harmony, I don't know if you recall, this one might actually be gone.
It's
Or is this the
gone.
new one? Yeah, I think this
No,
one's gone.
I think it's gone. They
Yeah,
did like a couple just like flash in the pan, little smoke bomb drops and are gone.
yeah. Well,
And I
like the
think
Lustau one.
that'll
Uh,
come back though.
there's a PX one, I think that was a one-off
Mhm.
as well.
The PX was.
Yeah. So Redbreast and Tawny Port. Now, I've said this before. Some of you, like maybe I haven't used it in a while. Not always a big fan of port casks. I find they're either great or they're not. And when they're not, they can be just dreadful. And part of that comes back to this idea of like, what is a port cask? Tawny Port is obviously a younger style of port wine. So it is plausible people are seasoning those casks for use in the Scotch whiskey industry. But the old casks, the casks that mature, um, like aged tawnies, vintage ports before they're put into glass, the good port houses don't trade those casks away. They use them until they literally come apart. And the reason for
Yeah.
this is that they want what's called dead wood. They don't want the wood to impart flavors to the wine. They just want that oak vessel to be, a vessel for oxidation so that the wine can go in there and slowly oxidize. They don't actually want any oak character on the wine. And so they'll use casks that have been used for decades for other things and then repurpose that wood to be used for port because they don't want it to transfer. So I always find it funny that people are looking for these port casks to use them. And yeah, I think that's partly why I find a lot of them are just not great, is that what exactly is it that they're calling a port cask? Where did it come from? Because I don't think it came from one of the top quintas that are producing port because they're just not selling them on. Other than
Well,
Graham's, which I believe is owned by the same Southeast Asian company that owns Dalmore, because it's all kind of in-house. And so so that's why you see a lot of Dalmore finished in Graham's port casks now. Because there's some kind of synergy there, I believe. What do we think
mm.
of the Tawny Port, Harmony?
Well, I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it's dark chocolate and like really nutty, but like nutty, like skins,
Hmm.
walnuts, perhaps instead of the creamier like almonds I was getting before.
It's got a nice little note of muesli on there.
Sorry?
Muesli, it's like a European form of breakfast cereal that's kind of boring and
Okay.
healthy and not
Yeah.
exciting. But I guess
Okay.
it's like a way of saying like it's grains,
Mm.
some of which have been milled into almost flour.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that's kind of got that.
But but somehow it's enticing enough for some people to have for breakfast.
I mean,
Like
this.
it's no Quaker's Harvest Crunch, I'll give you that. It's no
Okay.
Harvest Crunch.
Right. This is, I just need food in my belly crunch.
Mhm. But this
Or
does have
no
like kind of
crunch.
a
Maybe it's
flour, like
must.
a flour powdered sugar sort of sweetness to it on the nose.
Yeah,
Lots
there's
of
a
citrus again, kind of going
sweetness.
into like grapefruit juice more than like lemon this time. Little leather, little chocolate, as you say. What
Mhm.
about the palate? How is the palate?
Tannin, it's drier.
It's dry. It's very leathery,
Yeah.
earthy, bit of spice. I mean, it's a little bit winey. It's not overly winey, which I like. So that
Mhm.
port influence is fairly subtle on it. Again, like you said, very chocolatey, getting a bit of like a milk chocolate, like a Dairyland, I don't know, 2% milk chocolate. Nice little bit fatty, but not
Cool.
like a Dutchman dairy full fat chocolate milk, which is
Right.
next level.
I don't mind that. It's it's not over the top like I thought it could be,
Hmm.
but I mean it definitely has a port influence. Like,
It's chewy. It's got a nice balance to it.
mhm.
Yeah, I don't dislike that, which I know is a seems like a bit of a backhanded compliment, but it's pretty good. Like,
I mean 46%, I'm assuming it's not chill filtered as well, which is why it has that like big long finish and
yeah,
all
and
those
no
extra.
age statement on it, but I think we
Yeah,
can assume it's probably, I mean, somewhere between 10, 12 years of age. They just decided not to put an age statement on it
I
because
would
maybe it's
agree.
younger than the 12 and they didn't think people would buy it if it had a higher price point. But
Maybe.
yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, it's lovely.
All right. We're going to now try not to bore you with slides from the uh, website from Redbreast, which is really the only way to tell the story about a brand that has no distillery. I mean, it's made a distillery, but it never owned said distillery. So Redbreast was produced by a firm called W.A. Gibley, which was founded in 1857 on Oxford Street at Berwick Street in London. So there's an old photo. 1861, they opened a premise in Dublin. By 1866, they had a new office and stores and presumably a bottling hall of some kind there. By 1874, they had over 300,000 gallons of whiskey and bond, which they were buying from distillers all over Ireland. 1875, 996,000 bottles of whiskey a year. So Irish whiskey in the late 1800s was the most popular spirit in the world. It was more popular than cognac, which was actually quite hard to come by that point in time due to phylloxera. It was more popular than Scotch whiskey. Unfortunately, those fortunes were not to last because things got a little dicey. So continuing on, we'll do one more little bit here and then we'll continue the story later, the brand story from Redbreast. Ghiblis had an alliance with Jameson, which was a massive producer of spirit. By the turn of the century, they had 700,000 gallons of John Jameson and Sons whiskey in bond reserved for their brands. Harmony, this is something you came up. They were importers of sherry and had ample supply of casks. I mean, at this point in time, everybody was, uh, well, sherry was being imported into the United Kingdom, which Ireland, at least at this point, was still part of, and then being bottled in grocers. And so that would give access to these casks, would come full of wine, and then they'd have an afterlife to them. But I think there's another note to this, which comes much later, which we'll get to, that relates to the sherry. Um, the precursor to Redbreast was released in 1903. In 1912, they released Redbreast for the famous time, or for the first time, as a whiskey. And I believe it had a famous kind of stout bottle, the Priest bottle. And this was kind of a difficult time in Ireland. The Irish whiskey industry was already in trouble in the early 1900s because of blended Scotch. Um, an Irishman, Aeneas Coffey, who I mentioned earlier, invented the coffee still. The Irish looked down on it as producing inferior spirit. The Scots, including a small grocer in Kilmarnock named John Walker and Sons, saw opportunity, and the rest is history, as they say. Within 80 years, the Scots were out competing the Irish at selling whiskey. The Irish at one point uh, I think 60% of the whiskey sold in the US was Irish. And that, included bourbon and scotch. It was just a massive thing. The reputation of Irish whiskey was that it was the best whiskey in the world. But by the early 1900s, with globalization kicking off, with the Scots taking blended whiskey to the next level, the Irish were in trouble. And things only got worse in World War One when grain was rationed and only a handful of distilleries were even able to produce. At the end of World War One, the Irish had their War of Independence from Britain. Then they had their Civil War, by which point their economy was in tatters. Their only market that they had left was the United States because they'd been essentially banned from the British Empire, having left it. And then the Americans had prohibition, and that was the end. In some ways, it was almost the end of Irish whiskey completely. But essentially, they went down from 1,200 distilleries in the early 1800s to 28 by the end of the 19th century. And by 1965, they had consolidated down to just two distilleries. There was Middleton in Cork and Bushmills in Northern Ireland. All the brands that you knew, like Tullamore Dew, Jameson's, Powers, Paddy's, Redbreast, Middleton, were all produced at Middleton Distillery. Green Spot, Yellow Spot, all those whiskeys came out of one big distillery, and that included Redbreast. Um, but anyway, Harmony, shall we to another whiskey?
Yes.
All right. 15 year is up next. Uh, this has been in the market for a while. I honestly can't recall if I've tried it before. So, in some ways, this is trying it for the first time all over again if I have had it. Thankfully, I'm not looking down and seeing that I wrote a tasting note for it because that would have been embarrassing. Uh, what do we know about this? Again, ex bourbon and ex Oloroso sherry casks, bottled at 46%. I'll put it up on screen. Harmony, you've already got your nose in there. What do you find?
It smells like sherry, like a lot. It smells like some of the big scotches, but still has the that creaminess that I found in the first three, like throughout
Mhm.
it, the richness. But it definitely feels like it has a higher portion of sherry than the first two.
Mhm. I mean, it's got that cereal note again. I think we stated that these were going to be, it was going to be a bit of a theme in tonight's tasting, that pot still whiskey had a distinct note to it. Um, it seems a bit more like settled down than the prior three. Like you can see that age, it's tamed it a little bit. It's a little more mellowed. It's a little softer. I can see what you mean with the sherry. Like in addition to it having that little bit deeper dark fruit, leather, chocolate, it's got some more color to it. I mean, we don't know. I would love to know if they are, but I can't imagine they're adding caramel coloring to these.
I would,
I'd be heartbroken if they were.
me too.
Um, yeah, I think you're right. Like it's got more chocolate, more leather in this, more dried
More-
fruits.
Yeah, lots of dried
But
fruit.
but they all have this really kind of pithy grapefruit sort of burst of citrus on the palate, which is really interesting.
Hmm. I see what you're saying with that grapefruit note. There's a lot of dark fruits and chocolate. It's really nice.
Hmm.
It's not overdone. I think the ABV still holds up. It has a really nice finish. Like
Hmm.
even not having had a sit for a minute, you can still feel the warmth, feel the spices, taste the chocolate.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's almost even a little, like almost like a faint smoke to it on the finish, which I think has got to be barrel char from the bourbon. Like, because they're not peating these, but there's this to me, there's this weird, all I can describe it as is like kind of a, I don't know, like slight like burning hair. on the finish.
See, because on the Redbreast site, they do name who the cooperage is that they're using.
Hmm.
And I believe I looked it up, and at that cooperage, you can actually select the type of oak you want your sherry in and the char beforehand.
Hmm. Hmm.
So potentially you could be getting like a level 4 char
Hmm.
and put sherry in it for 2 years, which could impart some of those toasty notes over time. It doesn't just have to
Hmm.
be like a toasted cask or a level 1. Sorry, it can be quite
Hmm.
heavy.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up the subject of oak because, interestingly, the Irish are the only major whiskey producing country where you don't have to use oak casks. You can use
That is
all
true.
kinds of wood. You can use chestnut, black walnut, pine. And the reason I know this, and it's not really that big a secret, is about 6 years ago. Yeah, about 6 years ago. Well, five and a bit years ago, I went to Teeling for the second time to visit Alex Chasko, who's the master distiller there, and we drove up to their warehouse, which is not in Dublin, but it's near the border with Northern Ireland. Probably because that's where the brothers who founded Teeling Distillery's father has his own distillery, Great Northern, and I believe they were just buying warehouse space there. Well, they had a warehouse full of casks, and they had all kinds of random stuff. They had Amburana, they had some other bizarre Brazilian wood, and the fun part about it was that they knew a lot of these were not going to work out, but they didn't know which were and which weren't. So it was kind of like a mad science thing where like he's like, "Hey, do you want to try this?" And I believe they said they had 70 different types of wood
Yeah.
casks maturing spirit in their warehouse. Some of them were really interesting and had a lot of potential. Some of them were just foul and absolutely did not work. But it does bring up kind of an interesting point, which is not something we talk about often in tastings anymore, but I think we probably assume is an accepted truism, which is that there's a reason why they use oak. And it's not just because it makes good casks and that those casks are kind of self-sealing and that they swell up with water so that they don't leak, but it's that
Mhm.
they add flavors that you want. And if you char the wood, they also subtract flavors that you don't want, components that you don't want. So there's an additive as well as curative effect to it, plus that oxidative benefit because they're breathable. Not all these other woods have the same properties, but it was just fascinating to do that. So I'm glad you mentioned that about the cooperage because I'd forgotten all about this day-long adventure we had up to the Teeling warehouse in Northern Ireland, not Northern Ireland, but the north of Ireland, uh, to see all these bizarre ass casts they had because it was crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I featured an Irish whiskey last year called Kinahan's, and they did one called the Cask Project, and it was literally 5 different types of wood casks disassembled and then rebuilt into one cask. And they used it was like Portuguese chestnut, Madeira, and a couple other things that you just don't see, walnut or something. And
Hmm.
I think about like how sketchy that cask must have been and like how do you cooper something when you have so many different types of uh
Well,
wood to take care of. How do you
think
make
about
that
who
fit?
think about who did that first though. Maybe not with chestnut, but that was Amroot. That was the spectrum,
Then
like where they
yeah,
took like I forget what all the like it was 7 different types like bourbon, sherry,
yeah.
rum, port, all these different things, and they took the staves from these casks and
Mhm.
then made a essentially a Frankenstein cask out of them.
Yeah, it's
But
cool.
well, I like that 15. I think it's a good segue to the next one because, well, let's reserve judgment. I sampled this one a little earlier today and it was not what I expected.
Mhm.
18-year-old Redbreast, once again, 46%, ex-bourbon and Oloroso sherry. as well as cream sherry and tawny port casks. So we'll pop this one up on the screen for a moment and see what y'all think. Harmony, I think you're already in there. You're in the thick of it. What are you getting on this one?
Kind of earthy, kind of funky.
Yeah, it is kind of earthy and funky.
Still got more of those chocolate tones.
I get almost like a little bit of like, instead of that cereal note, I'm getting more like a dried flowers, almost like a potpourri kind of, not quite perfume, but not entirely not perfume note from it.
Yeah, a little bit more floral for sure.
It's dark. There's something that reminds me also of like old rum or cognac on there.
Rubber cognac.
Old rum
Right.
or cognac. I mean, old rubber is a tasting note I would not be above using, but that's not one I went to. It's still got that grapefruit note in there. A few other things I picked up earlier today, Tootsie Roll and Eat More. And then just lots of kind of jammy notes, like dark jammy fruits.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of dark fruit. Just everything is really dense and
Hmm.
condensed and dried. It's there's definitely sweetness on the nose, but it doesn't jump out like the way the 15 did.
Hmm.
Evan says mango dipped in dark chocolate on the finish. Great. No. I see. I get like the grapefruit more on this, like grapefruit peel, candied orange peels, and yeah, everything has to be dipped in chocolate.
I can't tell if I like it.
It's
And this
allowed.
is, what's that?
You see, that's allowed.
So it's dark. It's kind of got this exotic, fruity note to it. I think I like it better than I did when I tried it this afternoon, but I find it's very busy.
It
Like
is, yeah.
it's hard to like it doesn't have like a coherent style to it. So the best analogy I can use for this to me is I don't know, it seems a little bit like a blend that's not had enough time to marry. Like it's almost as if they just vatted all the components together, put them in a bottle and sent it on its way.
That would be sad.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that feeling though. Renata and Clint said there's lots going on here.
But I
That's
mean, that
dark
could be
chocolate
good.
with cream. It
Maybe
could
people
be.
like that.
Yeah, but I like when I can be like, there's this distinctive note and it's
Hmm.
orange peel or certain type of candy bar, something familiar. But sometimes when it's busy and you can't pinpoint something down,
Hmm.
um, I mean, there's something to be said for that,
Yeah. I mean,
in
I
my
would throw on
opinion.
there chocolate with whipped cream.
Mm.
To me it's like Mexican hot chocolate, but with some whipped cream on top of it.
Oh, cool. There's that cream note.
Hmm.
Chocolate with cream question mark. Yes. Apparently, yes. Um, some other people in the chat saying it's more complex and interesting than the first four.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's an enigma. You gotta drink the whole glass
So
for
I
an
I guess
opinion.
I had this not in a range of Redbreast, but in a vacuum, um, I suppose. But after drinking Bushmills, like I did a tasting note on the Bushmills 21, and then I went into this. And of
Ooh,
course,
interesting.
I'm gonna repeat myself here, my beating a dead horse comment from earlier. on the Bushmills was that I love the Bushmills 21. I just love the style. I love how elegant it is. I love how complex it is. I just wish it was at a higher ABV because I feel like it really suffers from that and
Hmm.
it could be a much better whiskey. But then I had this after it and I felt the palate, I felt the nose and palate had lots of flavor to them, but I felt they were busy and I felt the palate, the finish was thin. I felt the finish didn't last very long. It didn't carry. Now, in the context of the other Redbreasts here, I don't know if that's fair, but I don't know. I think for the price point, the age, I think I had maybe an unrealistic expectation for this one.
Maybe. Or you did them in the wrong order, and you just can't go back from that.
Well, I don't know that I could do the Bushmills 21 after this because like my palate would be used to all
You're,
those kind of whiny tannins.
I don't know, you're a professional.
Yeah,
Just
professional
gotta tell
adjacent.
your palate, okay, reset palate, just like that.
I wore
Have it
shorts all day
just for
today
you.
because it was 18 degrees, so that's how
Nice.
professional I am.
That is very
Um,
professional. It
it's
felt
quite
colder in
professional.
the store.
Um, anyway, I'm interested to know people's thoughts because it seems a bunch of you guys like it, and that's great. I mean,
Great.
but yeah, I don't know why for me, I think that the speed round will be where it really tells because I think I had higher hopes for this one than were maybe realistic. It's
Okay.
David's favorite so far. I'm not so sure. All right. Uh,
I believe it is his favorite.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. 21. Or no, before we do 21, is there any more super dry Redbreast history to get to? Why,
Well,
yes,
how
there
did it get its
is.
name? How? How do we
Yeah.
even get here?
Well, I don't know that that was even included in the various slides they had, but it
Then
was Harmony. Do you want to tell the tale of how it got its name?
some guy I can't remember the name of liked bird watching, one of the
Yeah.
owners and bottlers, and he really enjoyed bird watching and was quite enamored with the robin's
Hmm.
and named it after the colorful red breast of a robin.
There you go.
And, and there you go.
Uh, so 1970, Irish distillers phased out sale of bulk whiskey. Redbreast, well, I guess that was not a good time, but they managed to persuade Irish distillers, Ghibli's did, to continue supplying them for Redbreast. So the brand continued. 1978, as we know, the greatest vintage in history. Redbreast was running low. They changed to a pale malt brown color with large stylized number 12 overprint. I like that bottle. They should bring
I
that bottle
do.
back, other than the metal screw cap. I think that's far superior to what we have today. And then 1985, the last of the Ghiblis. The Redbreast, last balling of Redbreast under Ghiblis was 1985. In 86, they became part of Irish Distillers, which is Jameson, Powers, Paddy, Middleton, and such. And yeah, it then continued on. I think it's fair to say that that 19, was it the 1978 label?
Yeah,
Was the best one.
I think
Um,
I like it.
I think that's really where the story from my point ends. I mean, we could talk about 2011 to present, but I don't think anyone really closes or cares.
Well,
Um,
I only think it's exciting that they bottled the 27. I mean, I like to try older whiskeys, so if
mhm,
this is the oldest they've ever done, then I'm
mhm.
game.
Well, we'll get there. Um,
Okay.
yeah, the rest of it is just when they released various different whiskeys, including the first 27, which was in 2020.
Well,
Um,
once you go all in and just have your stuff produced, it's kind of hard to have your own history
yeah,
at that point.
but anyway. Uh, 21-year-old Harmony. Let's pull this guy up. This has been a favorite of ours for a long time. The price has jumped a fair bit, it is fair to say. But here, let's pop it up on screen. This has been a well-regarded whiskey for a very, very long time. I almost put the Andrew with a dead horse image back up on screen by accident.
Oh no.
All right, 46%. Uh, I'm going to go out on a leg here that they used a mix of bourbon and sherry casks in this. Uh, we don't have that info on our website. This appears to be one of Kurt's descriptions from back in the day.
I was gonna
Uh,
say it's really long. It's probably Kurt's.
it's a Kurt. It's a Kurt. Which is not to say there was not some interesting stuff in there, but sometimes he failed to mention the details, like going to their website now. Well, to be fair, they don't even mention on their website the type of casks that they use in it. American oak bourbon barrels, first fill, Spanish Oloroso sherry butts. So Spanish oak bourbon, or Spanish oak sherry and ex bourbon, and 46%. I like the nose on this a lot more than the 18.
It feels much more, I'm gonna use an Andrew word, tropical.
Oh, I do like to use that word.
Hmm.
It's a cleaner profile in the sense that like that last one had this kind of syrupy, like exotic note to it that was just a little too much for me. Whereas this, uh, it's more spirit driven. Yeah, like mango, papaya, kiwi,
Hmm.
melon. Like there's some really nice fruit tones in there. Looking for that grapefruit, but I haven't got it yet. All right, Tom's got a question we'll bring up later. It's a good question, Tom. We will come back to that. Yeah, I mean, for me, the tropical fruit notes are really driving this, the cereal tones. I love that there's
Okay.
sherry in this, but the sherry is just an accent. It's not
Yeah.
like I don't want to use the word drowning it. It's not dominating the aroma on the nose.
Mhm. You're
And
absolutely right.
there's a nice like minerality to it. Like I think maybe that's something about these maybe this is what Mark Renier should have been doing is making pot still whiskeys because I don't know, you're allowing more of that raw barley to carry through into the distillate, presumably than you would be if you're malting it. And yeah, it's got a nice texture to it. I really, really like this. All right,
Yeah.
let's give it a whirl.
Oh yeah. So good.
Yeah, that's a banger.
So good. I just
I don't disagree with David. I mean, it would be incredible to try this at Cask Strength because I'm sure it would just be like exploding on the palate with flavor. Um, but at 46%, it's got great texture. There's a nice sweetness to it. This little touch of chocolate and tobacco and the tropical fruits and the cereal tones that are still there at 21 years. Like this is
hmm
lovely.
It's so interesting. You get something six whiskeys in and so different than everything else.
Hmm.
There are signature notes that are the same,
Hmm.
but then you try this and I wonder about the percentage of casks and why they use so many wine casks, or is it specifically the years that it takes to get to this level? But
Well,
it's not.
and I mean, they don't specify, like, even with the sherry, are they maturing in sherry or just finishing some of the whiskey in sherry and then blending it back together? I mean, to me, this is really driven by bourbon cask. This is a very bourbon cask style of spirit. And I think that's what I like about it. I
Hmm.
love sherry when it's good, but I think
Hmm.
the to me, I love to be able like this is such a singular style of whiskey. It's different, like head and shoulders different from any single malt that's out there, like identifiably different on the palate. Like this is a whiskey that maybe you wouldn't know that it was either a like a spot whiskey or a redbreast, but you would know this was single pot whiskey when you try it.
Hmm.
Even the 21-year-old. And as these spirits get older, that distillate character really, really fades and it becomes harder and harder to pick out what that initial distillate was. But this is still so singular That's what's really cool to me about this, that it's maintained its identity and its style at this age.
Yeah. Tom says he finds this really perfumey and wonders if it were higher than 46, would it be too much?
No,
Good questions.
but
We'll never know.
no, I just said no, but
Yeah, no, it would be good.
it would.
My guess, though, is that they're maturing spirits and then blending. I would be surprised if they were finishing
Mhm,
whiskeys and casks. My guess is they're probably just
mhm.
maturing everything and then blending to taste. That's my hope and wonder.
I like Jeff's idea from the chat of just savoring everything. Um, However, when it comes to recycling, remember that you cut the top off the bottle and don't touch it, or you'll end up having to go get stitches in the middle of the night and your wife will not want to drive you. Just saying. I've been there.
Oh, okay.
Sabering's fun, but there's consequences sometimes. Um, well, I really like that harmony. Anything else to say about that before we move on to the 27?
No, I just wish I had a bigger pour. Getting darker on this
Yeah,
27, my
we are.
goodness.
The chat about savoring hasn't ended. Sammy said he learned recently you can savor a bottle with a ski.
You can
Um,
savor with anything
you can
heavy.
truly with anything. Although, if your name is Eli and you're
You
using a
can.
store-owned Zalto wine glass, you should not be trying to use that to savor a bottle of champagne, or your boss will be unhappy with you.
Well,
So,
he thinks he has more finesse than he does for 25 years old.
yeah. Well, who
I can
didn't when they were
finesse this
25 years old?
back alley saber.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. All right. 27-year-old. I've never had this before. I'm quite excited, though. I am a little nervous about the color. Um, Harmony's already laughing about that.
Because I'm nervous. I took one
Yeah.
smell and I'm nervous.
Well, I think this is the only Redbreast with a KWM bottle shot on the website. We should really get, even if that is, that might not even be a KWM.
It
Um,
probably is.
55.9%. So I like that. Bourbon and sherry before finishing in Tawny Port pipes. What could possibly go wrong? Redbreast 27-year-old. The last time this came into Alberta, there was just three bottles, and they were kind enough to give us all three. We have one or maybe two of these left in stock. I think it's just one. Um, yeah, what do we think? Harmony says two, so that's positive. What do we think about the nose on this?
It's like sticky toffee with chocolate. There's the tropical fruits are still there.
There are tropical fruits there, so I'm happy on that context.
Raisins. So many raisins.
Yeah, lots of dried dark fruits. Lots of tobacco too. Like it's got this really kind of almost slightly dank tobacco.
Hmm. It does. It kind of smells like a fresh pack of smokes
Mhm.
cigarettes.
Yeah, I mean to me, a lot of melon tones, pineapple, kiwi. I think that grapefruit note is in there still. I'm I can still see the connections to the grain in the other whiskeys, but I'm not seeing quite as much of it this time around.
No, there's so much. The casks, the wine casks, is so much bigger than the bourbon casks on this one.
But it gets really earthy, really leathery, really nutty.
Yeah,
Oh man, that is
it's
big.
nice. It's huge. Yeah. No, no, don't do it. Ah,
Yeah, that's a that's a big,
It's really
jammy,
chocolatey.
yeah, really chocolatey whiskey. Reminds me of like Black Forest cake with
Yeah.
um like the candied cherries in it, that dark chocolate, but you've also got that underlying kind of vanilla, like vanilla cream and the chocolate ganache. Like it's such a thick, intense profile.
Yeah. Yeah, the ABV really helps it along. It has a really it surprisingly to me it feels like a shorter finish.
Well, for me, there's a similarity to there's a similarity to the 18 in the sense that I find it's kind of busy, but I like it a little more than I like the 18 because it doesn't seem like the 18 to me just reminds me of whiskeys where you've done a quick finish and you've like
Mhm.
slathered on this goopy sherry port, whatever it is, just before you bottle it. This seems a bit more integrated. It seems a bit more intense.
I find it really interesting how they can keep those tropical and citrus notes right in the middle of everything. Just constantly sits in there.
Well, the color on this is dark, and the flavor profile as well is very dark. But
I
it's
just keep getting like grapefruit and oranges and
mhm,
lemon and even like acidic pineapple notes.
yeah, it's it's got a really nice finish. I think I like the finish the best of the whole. Like I think I like the finish better than I like the nose and the palate. Like the nose is good, but again, it's kind of busy. The palate's got a bit of like it's a bit sort of I don't know, obnoxious in the sense that it's kind of loud, but the finish is elegant,
Mhm.
rich, layered. Um, yeah, I mean, it reminds me of some great old sherried whiskeys, like old school
Hmm.
style sherried whiskeys. Um, yeah, I still think I might like the 21 better though, but we'll see.
Jeff has a fun fact. When this whiskey was distilled, there were still only three Irish distilleries.
That is a fun fact.
That is fun. I'm stealing that.
Yeah, yeah, 1987. Uh,
Ooh.
yeah, that was when Cooley was reopened, or Cooley was opened for the first time, sorry, by John Teeling. It was a potato ethanol plant. Because the Irish were so poor, they had to make alcohol from potatoes to blend with gasoline to keep the price of gasoline down. True story. If you didn't know
That's
that.
awful.
Yeah, they had some rough years, it's fair to say. And then they realized that they could be the place that companies could offshore their profits to, and now things are great. Except for the rest of us whose governments are underfunded because everybody like Starbucks and Coca-Cola offshores their taxes to Ireland. But, such is the way of things, eh? It's what happens. If only Kensington Wine Market could somehow make enough profits to justify offshoring them to Ireland, then everything would be grand. But we're a long way from that.
I don't know about that one.
No, we are.
We'd be doing a lot fewer Scotch tastings, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of really young Irish whiskey tastings.
Irish, or Jeff made reference to uh, destroying Irish potato vodka. We haven't even made reference to poachine yet tonight, and that'll be the only reference we make to it because I think it would somehow cheapen the whole tasting that we have here. But we've got a speed round to go to. So, Harmony, are you ready to go back through the seven Redbreast rams that we have in front of us?
Yes.
All right,
Ooh,
that 12
that
after this whole
nose.
tasting, that 12 still got a nice little nose to it.
Nibs.
It's nibs is a great note for that one. It does have that waxy kind of cherry strawberry thing going.
Yeah.
Very subtle, very grain forward.
Oh yeah,
It's lush,
that's nice.
toasty, grain
Bubblegum.
forward, fairly naked. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I really and I really like that. I like that they have put something out there that's not just goopy and like drowning in like new oak. I think that that's got some structure to it. Still like it better at 46, but for 40%, that's pretty damn good.
Well, if you would like it at 46, you might like the next one.
Except it's not at 46. It's at what?
53.
57.7.
What? 57? Oh my. I can handle this.
It's there's so much more going on there than there is on just the basic 12-year-old.
It smells creamier. It's got like cream soda notes.
Well, so yeah, and it's just lively. Like there's
Hmm.
like marzipan and
Yeah.
like milk, like a malted milkshake.
Lemon meringue.
Oh man, the palate on that 12-year-old Cask Strength is
Mhm.
lovely now. It's really settled down. And I think that's where we're really, it's the first one where you really start to see that kind of grapefruit note come through, that proto-tropical tone, and those nice kind of silky, dusty grain notes that carried through almost everything in the lineup. Okay. Anything for you to say
Yeah.
about that?
No,
Nope.
that's
Good.
just very good.
All right. Tawny Port time. It's a little confusing to me on the palate. It's like it's two different whiskeys at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, but it's okay. I don't think I like it as much as either the 12 or um the Cask Strength. I think that they're just more signature, more classic in profile. Um, Also, I want to congratulate Jeff for making up a word. Um, he probably meant exorbitant. Um, but I do love the word absorbent. And if that is a real word, I, well, I'm clearly not as smart as I think I am. But I kind of wish that was a word because it should be. Um, it's a perfectly cromulent word, which is a perfectly cromulent reply to my challenge there on that. Which is also an excellent Simpsons reference from the time of probably Conan O'Brien. But anyway, continuing forward, Harmony, anything else to say about the about the Tawny?
No, I also found it a little bit confusing, but that was even just on the nose. So I'm ready to
Mhm.
move on to
All
the
right,
taste.
15 year, lots of caramel tones. The citrus is there, the grains there, kind of like a toasted marshmallow note.
It's really dry.
It's very dry.
It feels more oaky this time around.
I wonder if this would have shown better if it had gone before the Tawny.
Maybe.
Um, because again, it feels like the 12, very naked, like it's struggling uphill a little bit against that Tawny Port. But I like it. All right, 18 year.
Mm.
Oh man. I again, like I don't know what it is about this one. I think I'm struggling with this one more than most of the others. I just find the nose is like again very, very busy, almost a little bit sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. got like chocolate mousse and
Yeah, really kind of like there's a dark bitter chocolate tone to it. I This one is not hitting for me, but it's okay. It's decent. It's
Mhm.
not bad. There's no flaws. It's just I think there's just too much cask kind of, to quote my
It-
tasting note from earlier today, tomfoolery going on here.
yeah, there's a little like Terry's chocolate orange coming through on the
Mhm.
finish.
Okay. 21-year-old. Oh, I don't know why, but there's something on the nose there that reminds me of when you open the box that your Christmas ornaments are in.
Where do you store your ornaments for the rest of the year?
In a box and or Tupperware in our garage. So yeah, again, like with the 15 after the Tawny, I think this was shown better before the 18, but it's really delicate. It's more spirit driven, more tropical. It's faded a little bit the second time around, and I don't know if that's because the 27 year just did a number on the palate, but it's still pretty and very elegant.
Hmm. There's got some like sarsaparilla spice notes on the finish now for me.
Mhm. Sarsaparilla is a good note. Second sip, it's juicy again, very tropical. Man, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. 21, the interior of a 1939 Buick. I'll take that. I've never been in a 1939 Buick, but I'll take your word for that. All right, Harmony, 27, last whiskey, and then we've got a vote to come. I licked the nose a little better the second time around. It settled down a bit.
Hmm. Kind of liked
Still,
it the first time. It was in your face.
still very chocolatey.
Oh, that's yum.
Yeah. The tropical tones are there, the sherry's there, the spice,
There's
the
great
earthy
spice.
tones. There's a lot going on. I
There's so
mean,
much. There's so much going on, but unlike the 18, it feels like it had the time to come together.
agreed. All right,
Yeah.
it's time for a poll. Did Evan come up with a cheeky third question? He did.
He knows
Um,
now what our expectations are.
I mean, that in itself is probably a bingo question.
Oh, and he used the bottle we liked in the photo.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Oh my goodness. Oh, Evan, you just did a great job tonight.
Oh, there you go. Favorite brand with a bird in the name. Well, there's lots of choices there and a bunch of bad ones. At least three bad, at least three naughty ones as far as I'm concerned. But we'll save that for now. All right, Harmony, favorites. I don't know if you've narrowed yours down. I've got mine narrowed down. I'm not 100% sure of the order on them.
Yeah, I don't know the order, but I'll say 27, 12, and Cask Strength.
Okay, I
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
I like those.
If
I
you had a
know.
chance, if you had to guess, what order would you put them in?
27 Cask Strength 12.
Okay, there you go. All right, we'll take it.
They're all lovely.
Um,
You?
I'm gonna go 21, 27, and cast strength. For me.
Nice.
Yeah, I think if I'm being true to myself, the one of those that I would be most likely to drink if I had it at home is probably the 21.
Fair
The
enough.
27 I like, but I don't think it's something I could drink every day. But if I wanted a special dram, I would crack it open and I would have a dram of that. And that 12-year-old cast strength, I mean, it just shows why that strength, that kind of undiluted profile, just has so much more kind of potential. So I really,
Mhm.
really dug that. All right.
Nosing
13
them
of
again, I might change my order to,
yeah.
but that's okay. They're
All
all
but
lovely.
three of you have answered the poll. So you have another minute and a half, we'll call it, while we're waiting on that. Harmony, while we're waiting, I guess Tom Rand had a question earlier about bottle closures, corks versus glass stoppers versus screw tops.
And you were
Um,
like, cork it, nobody cares, moving
yeah,
on.
put a pin in
Put a
that.
screw top in that.
Yeah, we'll get back to it. I mean, I'm interested to know what your take on this is. I'm not a fan of metal screw caps, and I don't love the glass stoppers, but I really love the high end Japanese screw tops that they put on bottles.
Yeah,
I think those are I wish everybody was using those.
yeah. I like not having to worry about a cork. Like, there's nothing worse than fishing out a cork or getting a
Yeah,
soggy looking cork that just stinks.
yeah.
And yeah,
Or like coming back to a bottle that you've left for a few months or a couple of years and it's fallen apart, which doesn't
yeah.
happen all the time, but it can. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, David's asking, what do they look like? I mean, if you look at any bottle of Yoichi, Nika, if you look at any Nika whiskey or any Suntory whiskey, the Hibiki is not a good example, but if you look at like the Yamazaki or the Hakushu bottles, they all have these higher quality, sort of food safe plastic, breathable, slightly breathable screw tops. And I think that they're by far the best opener. I mean, cork is great. Like, I'll admit it, I love that sound when you're like, plunk, you pull it out for the
Yeah.
first time. And if you live in a high altitude place like Alberta, sometimes you'll get this cool, um, almost like cloud formation when you first crack the bottle because the
Yeah.
air that's in there was from Scotland where it's much more humid and you're in a dry climate here. So you get this like basically cloud that
Hey,
forms in the neck of the
yeah.
bottle and then it disappears. Like I love all those things, but I think that I love the screw tops that the Japanese use. I think the Scots should adopt them. They won't
Hmm.
because they're stubborn, um, but they should. Uh,
Hmm. Great.
yeah. Uh, the cork cloud and a fresh crack. Love that, Ryan says. By the way, the SCN tasting from last week will be uploaded to YouTube. That's an Evan question. Chris and Sarah, I highly encourage you to chastise Evan by email to ask him when it will be uploaded to YouTube. And it's really easy because his email is evan@kensingtonwinemarket.com. So that's there for you.
Yeah.
Mission accepted. Love it. All right. Well, two of you haven't voted, but we are going to call it anyway because it's St. Patrick's Day and Harmony and I have to be at work around 7 a.m. tomorrow to receive a pallet or three of spirits and wine. Favorite whiskey in tonight's lineup, the results are 27 Nearby, a landslide, followed by the 21 and the Cask Strength. Second favorite whiskey tonight, Cask
Ooh,
Strength, followed by 21,
you're tied.
18, 27, and then 15. I think everything but the 12 and the Tawny got at least a vote, so that's fun. Now,
Yeah.
normally when Evan's here, we make him read his very long, humorous but very long third questions. He's not. So, what is your favorite whiskey brand that has a bird in the name? Redbreast, what can I say? I'm a big fan of birds. Famous grouse for those who love Grants but want to drink out of a different bottle. Kentucky Owl, brands that file for bankruptcy or best. Wild Turkey from the oldest father-son duo in the whiskey industry. Eagle Rare. I love the idea of chasing after a bourbon more than actually drinking it. And a parrot once told me to buy Patterson's whiskey. Let's be honest, that one should have won. The Patterson whiskey reference,
Buddy.
training 600 parrots in the 1800s and distributing them across the UK to squawk the name of a whiskey brand, that definitely should have won. And wait, why isn't there a Canada Goose whiskey? Um, That's a good question. Maybe there is one and we just don't know about it. There is a whiskey called Irish, or an Irish whiskey called Wild Geese. Don't ever buy it. It's absolutely awful. It's one of the worst things I've ever had, and I have had proper 12. So don't have that. Um, Harvey, that was a fun lineup tonight.
That was fun.
We
Yeah.
kind of wandered off in some directions I didn't think we would, like reminding people about the time we pissed off Corby so much that they ignored us for a decade. And then putting that into a tasting on YouTube, which they might stumble upon and then ban us for yet another decade.
You can only
Um,
hope.
can only hope. I
Yeah.
just want to be able to frame it this time and put it on the wall that I've been
Right.
blacklisted,
Yeah.
badge of pride sort of thing.
Right.
Thank you to everybody for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoy the tasting. We don't often do like a vertical like this, especially not with Irish whiskey. This is the first one like this I think we've ever done. But it was a great lineup, and a lot of fun. And I think we all learned something a little bit about Redbreast today, is it's definitely got a couple of signature notes and a very, very distinct style. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Great tastings coming up in the months ahead. Hopefully we'll see you then. If not there, maybe in store. But until then, I hope you all have a great night and thanks for tuning in. Thanks,
Yeah.
Harmony.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, bye.
See you. Bye.